If you told me last year that I'd fall for the guy who almost ran me over in a Trader Joe's parking lot, I would have laughed in your face. But life's funny like that. It started on a random Tuesday. I had just finished a long shift at the coffee shop where I work part-time, and I was walking back to my car, half focused on the podcast in my earbuds, and half wishing I hadn't agreed to pick up groceries for my roommate. That's when I heard the screech of tires, followed by a startled shit, and turned just in time to see a blue Subaru jerk to a stop inches from my leg. The driver jumped out. "Oh my God, I am so sorry. Are you okay?" I blinked. He was tall, lean, and wearing a white tank top that clung to his chest in a way that was, frankly, distracting. His dark curls were messy, like he'd just rolled out of bed, and his eyes... Jesus! His eyes were this deep green that looked almost unnatural. "I'm fine," I said, stepping back. "You just nearly ended my mediocre life, but no big deal." He cracked a nervous smile. "Mediocre, huh? Then I guess I just saved you from a fate worse than death." I laughed, even though I didn't want to. I should have been annoyed, but the way he looked at me, genuinely worried, not just trying to avoid a lawsuit, made it hard to stay mad. "I'm Julian," he added, holding out a hand. "Let me make it up to you. Coffee? Or, I don't know, kombucha? You look like a guy who drinks kombucha." I raised an eyebrow. "What's that supposed to mean?" Julian smirked. "No offense, you've got the flannel and Doc Martens vibe." I figured kombucha was a safe bet. I should have rolled my eyes, climbed into my car, and gone home. But instead, I gave him my number. Julian texted me that same night. Julian. "Still alive? Thought I'd check. Also still owe you coffee." I didn't reply right away. I stared at the message, weirdly nervous. I wasn't used to this kind of attention from guys like him. He felt out of my league. But a few minutes later, I typed back, "Me, still alive, minor trauma, will require caffeine therapy." We ended up meeting at this indie cafe I liked on Hawthorne the next afternoon. I tried not to make a big deal out of it. It wasn't a date, just repayment for almost getting flattened in a parking lot. But when he walked in, it felt like a date. He was wearing a vintage hoodie and joggers, hair still messy in that effortlessly hot way, and his smile when he saw me made my stomach tighten. "You weren't kidding about the trauma," he said, sliding into the booth across from me. "You look emotionally scarred." "Flirting already?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "This early?" He laughed. "I call it charm." We talked for hours. Like, until my Americano turned cold, and the barista gave us that passive-aggressive last call look. I found out he was a med student at OHSU, finishing his last year. He wanted to do emergency medicine. I told him about working part-time at the cafe, freelancing graphic design gigs, trying to keep my life from falling apart. He listened without judgment, which was surprising. Most guys I'd gone on dates with, if you could even call them that, never seemed that interested in the messy parts of me. But Julian asked questions, the real kind. The kind that made you think. He walked me to my car afterward. We stood there for a second, both of us lingering, like we weren't ready to leave. "This was fun," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "More fun than almost committing vehicular manslaughter anyway." I laughed. "High bar." Then he hesitated, just a beat, then looked up at me with this serious expression. "Hey, I meant it. I want to see you again. Not because I almost ran you over. Because you're easy to talk to." I didn't know what to say to that. No one had ever said something like that to me so plainly, like it wasn't a big deal. So I nodded. "Yeah, I'd like that." And I meant it. Julian and I started hanging out more after that. Slowly at first. A coffee here, a hike there. Casual stuff. We didn't talk about what we were, or where things were going. It just felt easy, comfortable, but also kind of electric underneath. I wasn't used to that. I'd had hookups, sure. A couple of almost relationships that fizzled before they even got going. But this felt different. Julian didn't flirt like it was a game. He didn't pretend to be cool or detached. He was present, funny, and when he laughed at something I said, it didn't feel forced. It felt like he actually liked being around me. Then, one Friday night, he invited me to his place. "I just want to chill. I'm too dead for anything wild," he texted. "Pizza? Bad movies? Maybe some wine?" I said yes without thinking. His apartment was small but nice, clean. Plants in the windows, textbooks stacked everywhere. It smelled like eucalyptus and rosemary, or maybe that was just him. He handed me a glass of red and motioned to the couch. "You okay with bad horror movies?" "I thrive on them," I said, taking a sip. We ended up halfway through some ridiculous 90s slasher movie when it happened. The main character tripped over nothing, got murdered in a cornfield, and Julian leaned his head back laughing. God, how are people this stupid? I laughed too, but my heart wasn't in it. My focus had shifted. His arm was resting on the back of the couch, inches from my shoulder. We were close. Too close. And every time he leaned in to make a joke, I caught myself looking at his lips. Then, during a quiet scene, he turned to me. "Can I ask you something?" he said. I nodded. "Do you ever wait too long to say something? Like you want to, but you don't know if it'll mess things up?" I swallowed. "Yeah, all the time." He held my gaze. "Cool. Then I'm not totally crazy." And then he leaned in and kissed me. It wasn't dramatic. No swelling music or fireworks. It was soft, almost hesitant. But it lit something in me that I hadn't felt in a long time. A kind of quiet joy that crept into my chest and settled there like it belonged. When he pulled back, he looked nervous. "Was that okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, it was more than okay." He smiled then. This shy, relieved smile I hadn't seen before, and everything shifted. This wasn't just casual anymore. After that night on the couch, things changed, but not in the way I feared. We didn't have the talk right away. There were no dramatic labels or long, vulnerable declarations. But there was a new rhythm between us, a kind of shared awareness. We texted more often, talked later into the night. He'd stop by the cafe just to see me, pretending he was in the neighborhood, even though I knew he wasn't. We were something. We just hadn't named it yet. Then came the weekend at the coast. Julian had a break between rotations and said he needed to get out of the city. "Just a couple days," he said. "We can split a motel, do some hiking, nothing fancy." I agreed. Maybe too quickly. The drive out to Cannon Beach was easy. We talked about everything. His clinicals, my weirdest client requests, dumb childhood memories. It was one of those rare conversations that makes hours feel like minutes. By the time we pulled into the little seaside motel, I was buzzing, happy, nervous, all of it. The room had 2 beds. I didn't ask questions, didn't push, I didn't want to make assumptions. But that night, after dinner and a walk on the beach, after we both changed into sweats and sat on our separate beds flipping through bad cable channels, he looked over at me and said, "This is dumb. Get over here." I didn't hesitate. Lying next to him in the dim light of the motel room, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. His arm slid under my neck. My head fit perfectly against his chest. We didn't even kiss at first. We just laid there, bodies warm and pressed together, listening to the muffled sound of waves outside the window. After a while, I felt his hand move, slowly, resting lightly on my waist. He didn't pull me closer. He didn't do anything else, just left it there, like a silent question. I turned my head, met his eyes. He leaned down and kissed me. Slower this time, less hesitant, and I kissed him back, feeling the space between us disappear, breath by breath. We didn't go further that night, not because we didn't want to, but because something about it felt too delicate, too good to rush. We fell asleep like that, tangled up, the TV still flickering in the background, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't wake up anxious or alone. The drive back from the coast was quieter, not awkward quiet, just soft, comfortable. Julian held my hand for most of it, resting our entwined fingers on the center console like it was the most natural thing in the world. Every now and then, he'd glance over and smile without saying anything, and every time he did, I felt this flutter in my chest like maybe I was starting to fall for him. Okay, no maybe about it, but here's the thing. As easy as it felt with Julian, there was still this little voice in the back of my head. The one that said, don't get too comfortable, don't get ahead of yourself, people change their minds, people leave. So when he asked if I wanted to come over that Friday night and just do nothing together, I hesitated longer than I should have. Unless you've got plans, he added quickly, eyes flicking down like he was bracing for a no. No, I said. I want to, I do. Just, yeah, I'll be there. That night, something felt different. He opened the door in joggers and a faded college hoodie, hair damp from a shower, and the second I stepped in, he kissed me. No hesitation this time, just grabbed my face like he needed me close and kissed me slow and deep. I melted into it. We barely made it to the couch. Clothes stayed on, but our hands didn't stop moving. His in my hair, mine under his shirt. I swear I could feel every inhale, every nervous laugh, every subtle pause, like he was checking to make sure I was okay. I was more than okay. I didn't want it to stop. Eventually, we crashed on the couch together, a tangle of limbs and blankets. The movie he picked was long forgotten. I rested my head on his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. You always this quiet after? He murmured, fingers brushing through my hair. I'm just trying to not mess this up, I admitted. He sat up a little, enough to look me in the eye. You're not. I don't want to push too hard, I said. I've been in situations where I got ahead of someone, where I caught feelings and they didn't. Julian's jaw tightened slightly, like something in him understood that too well. Yeah, he said softly. Same. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. But I'm not going anywhere, okay? I know what I want. What's that? I asked, already knowing the answer. You. After that night, things started to feel real, not just flirty texts and late-night cuddles real. But real. The kind where your toothbrush ends up in his bathroom. Where you fall asleep on his couch more often than your own. Where he knows your coffee order by heart and you know which hoodie he secretly sleeps in. We weren't official. But we were us. And I started to let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this was going somewhere. But then, one Sunday morning, everything tilted. We were at his place, still half asleep. I was wrapped in a blanket on the couch, sipping the coffee he made me, when his phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. He didn't move to get it, but I glanced at the screen out of instinct. It was a text from someone named Zach. Zach, you around today? Thought maybe we could talk. I felt it like a slap. Not because I knew who Zach was, but because of the way Julian froze when he saw me looking. You okay? I asked, keeping my tone light. He hesitated. Yeah, just someone I haven't talked to in a while. I nodded, tried to let it go, but my chest was tight. Old friend? I asked. He set his coffee down slowly. Ex. I didn't say anything. He moved away after med school started, Julian added quickly. We haven't spoken in months. I didn't think he'd reach out again. I nodded, but something in me bristled. Julian sat beside me. Close, but not touching now. You can ask whatever you want. I don't want this to be a thing between us. I'm not mad, I said. And I wasn't. Not exactly. I was scared. Because I liked him. A lot. And I didn't know how to compete with someone from his past. Someone who clearly still had a hold on him, even if it was just a memory. Do you still have feelings for him? I asked before I could stop myself. Julian looked me dead in the eye. I don't want him. If I did, I'd be talking to him right now. Not sitting here with you. The sincerity in his voice cut through the static in my head. Okay, I said. He nodded, then reached out and took my hand. You don't have to worry. I'm not gonna screw this up. I wanted to believe him. And a big part of me did. But trust is weird like that. It's easy to say, harder to sit with when you're lying awake at night wondering what Zach wanted to talk about. The rest of the day passed quietly. Julian didn't text Zach back. Not that I saw. But the name hung in the air like smoke. I didn't bring it up again, and Julian didn't push. Instead, we did normal things. Made pasta. Watched a rerun of New Girl. Pretended we weren't both thinking about it. Later that night, when I was getting ready to leave, Julian stood in the doorway, hands in his hoodie pocket, eyes on the floor. You sure you don't want to stay? He asked. I wanted to, more than anything. But I also needed space, just a little. I'm good, I said. I've got some work I need to catch up on. He nodded, but his jaw twitched. Okay. I leaned in, kissed him once, soft, short, and walked to the door. But before I left, I turned back. Just let me know if you do talk to him. I don't need details. I'd just rather hear it from you than wonder. I will, Julian said, and I believed him. I didn't hear from him the next day until late afternoon. Julian, he wanted closure. We met up. I told him I'm seeing someone. That I'm happy. Just wanted you to know. My chest loosened the moment I read it. Me. Thanks for telling me. Julian, can I see you tonight? I went over. We didn't talk about Zach again. We didn't need to. That night, everything between us felt stronger, clearer. There was no more wondering. The next few weeks were a blur of falling deeper into this thing with him. It wasn't always perfect. There were nights we miscommunicated, days he was too busy with clinicals, and I felt weirdly distant. But the difference was, he showed up. Every time. He brought me soup when I got sick. I helped him decorate his place for Halloween, even though he claimed not to care. He let me wear his softest sweatshirt when I stayed over, and I never gave it back. And one Friday night, sitting on his balcony, legs tangled under a blanket, he turned to me and said, I don't want to see anyone else. Okay, I said, heartbeat thudding. Me neither. He smiled. So, are we doing this? Like, for real? Yeah, I said, for real. He reached for my hand and squeezed it, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I felt safe. Officially being boyfriends didn't magically fix everything. There were still little bumps, like when I forgot his birthday was during exam week and brought over cupcakes he didn't have time to eat, or when he fell asleep during the indie movie I swore he'd love, and I pretended not to be salty about it. But those things, they were small. We learned how to navigate them. He started leaving little notes on my fridge. Good luck today, you got this. Or, ran out of coffee again, but I still love you. One time, he wrote, stop overthinking everything on a sticky note and put it on my laptop. I kept that one the longest. I learned the way he liked to be touched. Gentle at first, especially when he was tired. I learned that he never used alarms on weekends and that he could quote whole scenes from Jurassic Park without warning. I learned that when he said, I'm fine, he usually wasn't, and that sometimes the best thing I could do was just sit next to him until he started talking. One night, during a power outage, we lit candles and made grilled cheese sandwiches on a gas stovetop. We sat on the kitchen floor, eating off paper towels, the world dim and quiet. I used to think this kind of thing only happened to other people, Julian said, his voice soft. What kind of thing? This, he said, motioning between us. Something that actually works. Something good. I leaned my head on his shoulder. Yeah, me too. It's weird how life sneaks up on you. How one almost accident in a grocery store parking lot turns into movie nights, inside jokes, shared Spotify playlists, and someone who remembers exactly how you take your coffee. We never had some big dramatic moment. No one cheated, no one ghosted. We just kept showing up for each other, for the hard days and the weird ones, and everything in between. And that, I think, is the real story. The first time Julian said I love you, he didn't mean to. We were in his kitchen. It was a lazy Sunday morning, the kind where you don't bother putting on real clothes or checking your phone for hours. I was wearing his faded med school hoodie, making scrambled eggs while he stood behind me, arms around my waist, chin resting on my shoulder. "I like this," he mumbled. "What, the eggs?" "No," he chuckled. "This, us, you here, the hoodie, all of it." I leaned back against him slightly. "Yeah?" "Yeah," he said softly. Then, almost under his breath, like he wasn't sure he wanted me to hear it, he added, "Love you." It hung in the air between us like a dropped glass. He froze immediately after saying it. I could feel the tension in his body change, his arms loosening like he was bracing for impact. But I didn't panic. I turned off the burner and faced him, hands still warm from holding the spatula. "Say that again?" He looked down, half smiling but also clearly nervous. "I said it too fast, didn't I?" "Maybe," I said, stepping closer. "But I'm glad you did." And then I said it back. Because I had been feeling it for weeks. In the quiet moments. In the way I'd instinctively reach for him in my sleep. In the way his voice sounded when he was half awake. In the way my chest ached a little when I had to leave his apartment in the morning. We kissed right there, next to the stove, with eggs slowly turning cold in the pan behind us. That night, I didn't go back to my place. I stayed. And then I stayed the next night. And the night after that. Before either of us officially said it, I had practically moved in. My toothbrush lived on his sink. My laptop lived on his kitchen table. My hoodie collection slowly migrated to his closet, one garment at a time. I still kept my apartment, but it felt more like storage than home. We settled into life together, not in a sitcom perfect way, but in the way where you learn how to love someone in the little, ordinary moments. Like how Julian forgets to do laundry until he's down to a single pair of ridiculous boxers with dinosaurs on them. Or how I leave half-drunk cups of coffee on every surface and somehow never finish a mug. He'd complain about my hair clogging the shower drain. I'd tease him for never screwing the peanut butter lid on all the way. We'd argue sometimes. About dishes. About weekend plans. About who forgot to pay the damn parking app. But the difference now was, we came back to each other. Every time. One night in December, it snowed. Not the kind of snow Portland usually gets. This was real, blanketing everything in soft white silence. Julian pulled me out of bed, barefoot and half asleep, and dragged me out onto the fire escape. "It's 2 a.m., I muttered, shivering. "I know," he whispered, "but look." The world was glowing. Streetlights reflected off the snow, casting everything in golden light. It felt like standing in a painting. Julian leaned on the railing, arms crossed, face lit with quiet awe. "When I was a kid, I used to think snow made everything feel cleaner," he said. "Like it gave the world a reset." I looked at him, really looked at him. "Do you need a reset?" He turned, met my eyes. "I used to, before I met you." That night, we slept with the windows cracked open, wrapped in every blanket we owned. Cold air kissing our cheeks while his hand stayed wrapped in mine under the covers. And in the morning, he made pancakes, burned them horribly. We laughed until we were doubled over in the kitchen, choking on syrup and joy and whatever this wild, beautiful thing between us had become.